You may close your eyes and allow your body to relax by bringing it to a relaxed state. As you heard the three sounds of the gong, maybe those who are joining on Zoom may not hear that. You can also pay attention to what is present in your mind, what is present outside yourself, your body. To bring your body to a relaxed state, you can take a deep breath in. Notice your shoulders going all the way up, and you can drop your shoulders as you breathe out. You can continue breathing in and breathing out like that. Now you can maybe scan your body, sensing wherever you notice any tension, any tightness. You can relax your eyes. Also relax the back of your head. You may relax your lower back and upper back. Bringing your body to an upright position. You can also bring up a wholesome attitude of loving kindness, inwardly directed. Actually, this relaxing state of your body is part of that loving kindness. When you look after yourself that way, there is this sense of wellness and also a sense of stability through which you can radiate loving kindness to your family and friends and all others you are dealing with. You can continue to breathe in and breathe out, noticing how things drop from your attention as you become focused, and as you collect your mind with this attention to non-attention to so many things, you may feel like you are creating space for tranquility and calmness in your body. So you allow things to happen, taking the controller away, but with persistent effort and energy, with right mindfulness. You remain calm, not knowing what comes next, letting things be, just allowing the experience to manifest from within your being. You can notice if your body is demanding sleep, if it is tired, overeaten, not eaten properly, or not eaten enough. With an eye of compassion, you give your body the space it needs. With a mind imbued with loving kindness and compassion, you keep coming back to your each new breath. You see a meditation, no meditator. You see the path, no traveler. You see experiences coming and going, and that they are empty of a self. That emptiness, shunya, empty of a self, has a liberating effect on your mind. So we don't take things personally, things come and go. This too shall pass. That is the wisdom, insight, and the understanding that we cultivate with that wisdom of emptiness. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body These are devoid of a self. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, devoid of a self. External experiences including forms, sounds, smells, touches, tastes, also devoid of a self. Mind and mind-made things are also free from a self. Thinking is free from a self. Mountains, earth, rivers, oceans, all the material things are free from a self. There is no permanent, lasting self or a controller in those solid things. Externally and internally, there is no self to be seen, to be comprehended, to take things personally. So we allow things to be dissolved. In another way of looking at emptiness, shunyatā, you can look at the city where you live, focus on buildings, roads, people, vehicles, and you may come to the singleness of the house where you live in, the place where you happen to be right now. So you are free from those other buildings, streets, vehicles. In your mind, you have the singleness of this peace house, this 3-story building with its walls, roof, floors, stairs, lights. So this is a way of decluttering your mind with an awareness of emptying and emptiness, freeing the mind from what you were seeing before. What precedes the experience is gone until you arrive at this oneness of one thing, empty of many other things. That is also a form of shunyatā. So the first way of seeing was seeing that all these experiences are free from a self. The second way of seeing was arriving at oneness, emptying the mind from other things. And now the third way of experiencing emptiness is deliverance of mind into shunyatā, emptiness. Focusing on emptiness itself, like we focus on space, nothingness, and emptiness. For that, there is a long path, experiencing first, second, third, fourth jhanas, and then infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception, singleness of the mind, and immeasurable deliverance of mind through experiencing emptiness. Many cessations after this remarkable purity of mind that is secure and stable can be achieved. Now you may take another deep breath in and relax. And you may come out of your meditation, preparing yourself to learn, understand, question, and develop wisdom. Okay, so you can come out of emptiness if you are in it. Good to see you all. And so I have prepared some notes, and I don't think I will have the time to read all of that, but I like to share the screen. It's about 11 pages, so I did not print them. But I will, hopefully the recording will have, capture most of it because I share the screen. So in the email we sent out, I said this is important in the Theravāda tradition as it is in the Mahāyāna tradition. And as we try to experiment in our meditation, emptiness is interpreted in three ways. Empty of a self, empty of what comes before, and we will learn what that is. And the third way is what Pali goes to describe it as shunyatā ceto vimutti. So vimutti is deliverance, like freedom. Ceto is the mind, shunyatā is the state of being empty. So there is great liberating insight in learning emptiness. And I discovered a lot, as I started reading about emptiness specifically for this Dhamma talk. Although in the email we sent out, I mentioned only two sutras, Lesser and Greater Discourse on Emptiness from the Middle Length Discourses, 121 and 122. I found several other sutras, very short ones, such as this one, This is from Suttanipāta, Pārāyanavagga. In it, Brahmin youth Mogharāja asked this question from the Buddha. By looking upon the world, in which manner can one escape the eye of the king of death? So, by looking upon the world, in which manner can one escape the eye of the king of death? So, this is talking about a king, but it's a metaphor talking about being immortal. So, how can one escape death? By what way can we look at the world to escape the process of dying? This is with the understanding that we can meditate and escape continuous birth and death. So with that thought in mind, Mogharāja, the Brahmin youth, asks this question and the Buddha gives this answer. Look upon the world as empty, Mogharāja. So the Buddha, in Pali, he says, Suññato lokaṃ avekkhassu. Look up, so avekkhassu means look upon the world, lokaṃ, world, Suññato, as empty. And being mindful at all times. So the Pali for that, if you are interested, is sadā sato, always mindful, uprooting the lingering view of self. Attānudiṭṭhim ūhacca. So uprooting, ūhacca means uprooting diṭṭhi, the wrong view of atta, the self. One can get well beyond the range of death. Him who thus looks upon the world, the king of death gets no chance to see. So there is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, if that helps. He translates this exact same thing in a different way. Look upon the world as empty, Mogharāja, being ever mindful, having uprooted the view of self, one may thus cross over death. So crossing over death, in other words, means one may attain Nibbana and be free from the cycle of birth and death. So in another discourse, this is from the Sañutta Nikāya, 3568. It's called Suññaloka Suttaṃ. Buddha's attendant monk, Venerable Ananda, asked the Buddha, Venerable Sir, it is said, empty is the world, empty is the world. In what way, Venerable Sir, is it said empty is the world? And the Buddha responds, Ananda, with regard to whatever is self or what belongs to self, this is what is said empty is the world. Again, the concept, the idea of a self is used to discuss or respond to that question. Or when Ananda says empty is the world, when there is no association of a self, the world is empty. In that sense, it is empty, the Buddha says. And the Buddha explains it further. And what Ananda is empty of self, or what belongs to self? This is like how we try to do in our meditation. The I, Ananda, so this is about the physical I, is empty of self, or what belongs to self. Forms that we see are empty of self, or what belongs to self. I consciousness is empty of self, or what belongs to self. So you see, you have an I, and then you have external forms, and we become conscious on things we see. So that too is empty of a self. And meeting of these three eye contact is empty of self, or what belongs to self. Whatever feelings arisen interdependent on eye contact. This is, dependent origination teachings. This is how things arise dependent on other things. So first there is I, and then forms, and then I consciousness. Meeting of three brings eye contact, and then feelings associated with that experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feelings. That too, those three feelings are also empty of a self, or what belongs to a self. And the Buddha goes on to explain it about everything else, like ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, and whatever else that we experience, sights, the sound forms, smells. I'm not sure if you followed me in the meditation we tried to do. I tried to bring that up, but keeping this teaching in mind. It's not very easy, so it's okay if you don't get it in your first go. So the Buddha concludes saying, Ananda, it is because of whatever is empty of self, or what belongs to self, that it is said empty is the world. So for those who want to look at this document, I have all the all the links also in here, so you can click on them and read. So one question someone has asked in internet is, so if you talk about emptiness, there's nothing there, so how could you abide in that? Because it's emptiness, it should be empty, right? Like, how can we set our attention in it? So that question is answered in this other sutta, Middle Length Discourses 151, the purification of alms. So in this, the Buddha says, Venerable Sariputta, a prominent disciple of the Buddha, approaching the Buddha, and the Buddha comments on his complexion, saying, Sariputta, your faculties are so very clear, and your complexion is pure and bright. So in Pali, it goes as Vippasannāni kote Sariputta indriyāni parisuddho chavivanno pariyodato. So chavivanna is the skin color. It's so bright, something different. When someone is happy, you can tell, by looking at them. They may not necessarily speak, but you say, you seems to be happy. This is like that. The Buddha's question is different, though. It's not, the Buddha is not asking, what kind of makeup you use, or but the Buddha's question is, what kind of meditation are you usually practicing these days? This is a very sincere question. So katamena kotvaṃ sariputta viharena etarahi bahulang viharasiti. Bahulang is what kind of meditation do you do often these days? So in his answer, he says, Venerable Sir, these days I usually practice the meditation on emptiness. Suññatā viharena ko ahang bhante etarahi bahulang viharamiti. So I nowadays practice the meditation on emptiness. And the Buddha praises him, saying, Good, Sariputta, sadhu, sadhu, Sariputta. So, and the Buddha says, for emptiness is the meditation of a great man. And some translators say that means someone like Buddha would also often abide in emptiness. So the Buddha says, now a mendicant might wish, a monk may wish, may I usually practice the meditation on emptiness, so they should reflect. Along the path, so this is when they are going on alms round, along the path that I went for alms, or in the place I wandered for alms, or along the path that I returned from alms, was there any desire or greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in my heart for sights known by the eye? So this is a monk reflecting, after alms round. Did I see anything that was, that distracted me, that was attractive, and did it bring up greed, hatred, or delusion? This is the Buddha kind of continuing that their conversation, maybe with the intention of helping the disciples of Venerable Sariputta who may have followed him to see the Buddha. So this is the Buddha trying to help other monks. Suppose that upon checking, a monk knows that there was such desire or greed or hate or delusion or repulsion in their heart, they should make an effort to give up those unskillful qualities. So that is expanded to the ear, nose, tongue, body. It's always about the experience a human usually have. So did that question, it's empty, what can we focus on? It answered that question, but I want to bring up Middle Length Discourses 121, the shorter discourse on emptiness. With that, maybe we can stop and think about that question again. I have the summary here also from, what's the website? Where they have the discourses, not the Sutta Central, but the other one. So the summary is that, well, I have the sutta here, so let's maybe start from there. So at one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in the eastern monastery. It's called Pubbārāma. The stilt, long house of Migara's mother. Then in the late afternoon, Venerable Ananda came out of retreat and went to the Buddha. He bowed, sat down to one side and said to him, "Sir, this one time you were staying in the land of the Shakyans, where they have a town named Townsville, Nagaraka. There I heard and learned this in your presence." So the Buddha said, "Ananda, these days I usually practice the meditation on emptiness. I trust I properly heard that." And the Buddha says, "Yes, Ananda, you heard me properly. Now, as before, I usually practice the meditation on emptiness." And the Buddha explains what that means. So this will answer our question. No, it's emptiness, it's empty. So what can, there's nothing there. How can we focus on it? So this is that other way the Buddha looked at it. Consider this stilt long house of Migara's mother. I actually Googled that. It's house built on logs. Goes, I think some stories say that this was 9 stories told. I'm not sure about that. But this is the Buddha's time, and she was a wealthy supporter, and she built a huge place for monks to live. It's empty of, so this Migara's stilt long house it's empty of elephants, cows, horses, and mares, of gold and money, and of gatherings of men and women. There is only this that is not emptiness, namely the oneness dependent on the mendicant Sangha. In the same way, a monk, ignoring the perception of the village and the perception of people, focuses on the oneness dependent on the perception of wilderness. So imagine that this particular place built for monks is located in wilderness. So a monk wants to focus only on the green forest. And in his mind, he closes his eyes, he only sees the forest. He doesn't imagine of people, he doesn't imagine of anything else but that one thing. So in that sense, emptiness does not mean that it is completely empty. It has something to focus on. Because of that practice, we find this statement repeatedly here. Their mind gets to avekkhantaṃ, oneness, and their mind becomes secure, confident, settled, and decided in that perception of wilderness. They understand here there is no, so the key word here is dharata, no stress, due to the perception of village or the perception of people. So imagine the mind of a person who is multitasking, too many things happening, and that they start focusing on just one thing, and so their mind is able to experience an immediate relief because of that one thing they focus on. So that's what I can take from this initial approach. So dharata, there's no stress. There's no, because we can actually build frustration because we, say you are actually multitasking and somebody asks a question and we can't focus on that third thing. So we say, we may say something not so nice and we don't even know we did that. And then, we realize, oh, this is not nice. Time to focus on one thing. And then, meditation becomes so important to us. So the Buddha further explains that state. There is only this modicum of stress, namely the oneness, dependent on the perception of wilderness. They understand this field of perception is empty of the perception of the village. It is empty of the perception of people. There is only this that is not emptiness, namely the oneness. So it clearly says asuññatā. So one is suññatā, that is emptiness. Asuññatā is definitely non-emptiness, but the singleness, namely the oneness dependent on the perception of wilderness. And so they regard it as empty of what is not there. But as to what remains, they understand that it is present. So gradually focusing on one thing. And the Buddha says that is how emptiness is born in them, genuine, undistorted, and pure. So the starting point of emptying the mind, if you want to say it that way, starts like that. So then I went into gather what else is there. So then that monk ignores the perception of wilderness and focuses on earth. And then gradually, having ignored the perception of earth, he focuses on infinite space, and then infinite consciousness, and then nothingness, and then neither perception nor non-perception, and then signless immersion of the mind. So animittaṃ ceto samadhiṃ. So that is arriving at a very profound state that there's, so you see gradually that monk went to infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception. If you have heard these terms before, it is very useful now. These four states are called samapattis, attainments, beyond the first four jhanas, first, second, third, fourth jhanas, very much supported with equanimity. Someone's mind is in such a balance. So if you even try to understand without any prior knowledge, neither perception nor non-perception, it's like you perceive something, you almost do, and then you don't perceive it. If, I think I failed at explaining what it is, but I tried. It's just something like there's so much clarity in your mind that you almost don't see any form, any mental disturbance to grab on. Our nature is to catch something, but here in this state, there's only that equanimity. So then there's signless immersion of the animitta, though no sign, signless immersion of the heart. It's this place. But then the Buddha brings, this interesting argument that even this signless immersion of the heart is produced by choices and intentions. So they understand, but whatever is produced by choices and intentions is impermanent and liable to cessation. So I took the Pali there, tada niccang nirodha dhammang. So knowing and seeing like this, their mind is freed from the defilement of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. So these are key words in the teachings. So what happens at the heart, the center of awakening, is mind being freed from sensuality and desire to be reborn in any form of existence, human, heavenly, or animal, or any other realm, and being free from ignorance. So when they are freed, they know they are freed. So that's the knowledge about truth, vidya, right knowledge, not avidya. So that's freedom from ignorance. They understand rebirth is ended, the spiritual journey has been completed, what had to be done has been done. There is no return to any state of existence. There is only this modicum of stress, namely that associated with the six sense fields, dependent on this body and conditioned by life. That means Nibbana or cessation does not mean that we end existing. We can't just press a button and undo ourselves. We do have to live after that and deal with the six sense faculties. If you wondered what happens after Nibbana, this is like, the Zen proverb, mountains are mountains, mountains are not mountains, and mountains are mountains again. That means you do see that mountains are made of just elements, but so what? It's like, before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water, and after enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. You just have to continue living your life. So, and the Buddha explains that further, saying there is only this that is not emptiness, namely that associated with the six sense fields, dependent on this body and conditioned by life. And so they regard it as empty of what is not there, but as to what remains, they understand that it is present. So there's no permanent escape if you want it. And that wanting creates suffering, really. That is how emptiness is born in them, genuine, undistorted, and pure. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins enter and remain in the pure, ultimate, supreme emptiness, whether in the past, future, or present, all of them enter and remain in this same pure, ultimate, supreme emptiness. So the Pali for that purity is that parisuddhaṃ paramanuttarang shunyatā upasampajja viharinsu. So they dwelled in that state. So this is how realistic, or how, I don't want to say the wrong word again, naturalistic, is that a good word? How the Buddha can present it in a way that we can understand. So, so in the Mahasuññata Sutta, that is Middle Length Discourses 122, this I saw as a direct instruction to Ananda in a little rough way. But having spoken that way, the Buddha says, "Take me as a friend. Don't take me as an enemy." That was very interesting. So the summary is that this sutta gives many valuable lessons on practical issues surrounding the attempt to develop an internal meditative dwelling of emptiness, to maintain it, and to see it through to awakening. Some of these issues include the need for seclusion as a conducive setting for the practice, types of conversation, so we need to be mindful about the conversations that we engage with and people we deal with, and thinking that are right thinking that are beneficial and harmful, that can be harmful for the practice. The dangers of being distracted by visitors, so don't come next time. No, please come. And the proper attitude to have toward one's teacher. So this is the Buddha saying, no, don't be upset when I teach directly to you. Because Ananda clearly, he developed insight, but he 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 had all that knowledge. He wanted to teach other monks and nuns, but he never became enlightened until the Buddha passed away. If you know a bit of history of, so the Buddha kept telling him, like, don't you see those empty huts and trees, sit there and meditate, Anand. So the Buddha was encouraging him. So especially this teaching came to being when the Buddha visited this one place where monks were preparing their robes, too many monks. So, and the Buddha was surprised that there was a lot of noise there. So, and the Buddha commented on that, and Venerable Ananda saw the Buddha approaching, and so Ananda happened to be the one answering questions asked by the Buddha. What is happening here? Why are there too many? So the Buddha went to this potter's hut where there were many seating, resting places prepared for many, many people. So Ananda said, monks are preparing robes, and the Buddha began his discourse saying, don't engage in too much in conversation. Just focus on emptiness of mind, gradually developing it to the level of deliverance of mind to in emptiness. So the sutra ends, to enter and remain in emptiness internally by not focusing on any signs. So the visitor part is very interesting here. Now suppose when the Buddha is practicing this meditation, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, rulers and their ministers, monastics of other religions and their disciples go to visit the Buddha. In that case, with the mind slanting, sloping, and inclining to seclusion, withdrawn, and loving renunciation, the Buddha invariably gives each of them a talk emphasizing the topic of dismissal. So then the Buddha brings up the talk on jhanas up to the fourth jhana, and then the emptiness in the subject of emptiness internally, externally. So internal emptiness, I would think that it is about, like we discussed earlier, taking eye, ear, nose, tongue, body as empty of a self. External usually is the things that we see, hear, smell, taste, that they are also empty of a self. And both internally, externally, that is, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, all of that are empty of a self. So both internally and externally seeing that emptiness. And then when their mind is, but if their mind isn't secure, confident, settled, and decided, in that case, they focus on imperturbable, further escape from being disturbed. So their mind arrives at this imperturbability. And then they can focus on walking, and when they walk, they don't think of anything else, and they can stand and don't think of walking. They can sit and they don't think of standing. They can lie down and avoid in those activities, avoid unskillful qualities of covetousness and displeasure, because a monk meditating alone can develop displeasure in their mind about this place is not good, this, that other monk is noisy, like I was talking about my father earlier. Even the quietest place can be an unpleasant place, because how the mind brings up these unpleasant experiences. So they purify their speech. They talk about fewness of their wishes, avoid unskillful thinking, avoid sensual stimulation, sight, sound, smells, taste, and so on. And then the monk meditate, observing the rise and fall in these five grasping aggregates. That is also a technical term: form aggregate, feelings aggregate, perceptions aggregate, mental volitional formations aggregate, and consciousness aggregates. These are called five aggregates, five skandhas. And then he focuses on, I have given up the conceit I am, asmimana. And then the Buddha says, don't break your practice for indulging in groups. So Ananda, treat me as a friend, not as an enemy. And he further says, I shall not mollycoddle you like a potter with their damp, unfired pots. I shall not mollycoddle you like a potter with their damp, unfired pots. So āmaka matte. I shall speak, correcting you again and again, pressing you again and again. The core will stand the test. Yosaro so tassatiti. So I have about 5 minutes, but I like to bring this third thing based on the Middle Length Discourses 43, Mahāvedalla Sutta, where the limitless release of the heart and the release of the heart through nothingness and the release of the heart through emptiness. So these are brought up there. And the question is, and what is the release of the heart through emptiness? This is not the Buddha responding. I think this is Mahakottita responding. It's a great monk, name of a great monk. It is when a monk has gone to a wilderness or to the root of a tree, to an empty hut, and reflects like this. This is empty of a self, or what belongs to a self. This is called the release of the heart through emptiness. So realizing the illusory nature of a self is very essential in understanding emptiness. So I will skip that to go to this other teaching. This is called Ani Sutta, a drum peg. So this is the Buddha talking about the future. In the future time, there will be monks who won't want to listen when discourses spoken by the Buddha, like other monks speak about the Buddha's teachings, deep, profound, transcendent, dealing with emptiness. When they are being recited, they won't actively listen or try to understand, nor will they think those teachings are worth learning and memorizing. So coming from this side, I know that not many monks are actually interested in learning the discourses nowadays. Yeah. So this other teaching from the Samyutta Nikaya, Phena Sutta. This is very famous. I think this has some link with Mahāyāna teachings. Form is like a lump of form. Form, like the physical form, is like a lump of form. Feeling is like a bubble. And perception seems like a mirage. And choices like a banana tree. There's no trunk. And consciousness like a magic trick. So taught the kingsman of the sun, that is the Buddha. So in Mahāyāna tradition, it is in the Heart Sutra, we find Heart Sutra and several Prajñā Paramita Sutras, we find the teachings of emptiness. The form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And I think this morning, Carl, if you are here, you can maybe bring this up and elaborate more. To become a bodhisattva, realizing emptiness is a key step. So you can be so bodhisattva is someone who is aspiring awakening, who also has a heart full of compassion, wanting to help others before they help themselves to become awakened. So they begin their vocation, the journey, with understanding of emptiness. Carl, you are here.
Yes, yeah. You said it the way I had heard it. Maybe just a little bit different language. The teaching I was referring to was suggesting that the primary goal is cultivating an attitude of care, and key to developing that or cultivating that attitude of care was recognizing, experiencing emptiness, the emptiness of self and the emptiness of the mind, the emptiness of everything.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. So I think I'm going over time here, but I'll take a minute to explain these several scholars and how they look at emptiness. Thanissaro says emptiness is nothing metaphysical. Emptiness is a mode of perception, a way of looking at experience. It adds nothing to and takes nothing away from the raw data of physical and mental events. And Buddha Dasa says, another monk, emptiness means innermost heart. And I think his explanation is here that it says emptiness as an approach to meditation is also seen as a state in which one is empty of disturbance. This form of meditation is one in which meditators become concentrated and focused on the absence or presence of disturbances in their minds. If they find a disturbance, they notice it and allow it to drop away. This leads to deeper states of calmness. Emptiness is also seen as a way to look at sense experience that does not identify with the I-making and my-making process of the mind. As a form of meditation, this is developed by perceiving the six sense spheres and their objects as empty of any self. This leads to a formless jhana of nothingness and a state of equanimity. So that's all. If you have questions, you wait until the next Buddha appears and ask him.
Thank you, Kusala. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. Yeah. Any questions, or should we end here? Maybe we share merits, and maybe do you have questions? Yeah. Yeah. So choices. I think. It's like an onion. When you peel it, you don't see anything. So the Pali word is sankhara. Sankhara is mental formations. They come and go, and it's, if you think that they are mine, then there is a problem. Not taking them as mine is the key to awakening. That, and looking at other metaphors like form. Form is, if this physical body is just like a lump of form, and if you see something in there, but you try to take it to your hand and keep it forever, but there's nothing there in the end. So all these experiences and metaphors are really useful in that way to see emptiness of a permanent entity in those. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah.
Intuition, it comes from here, but not always from here.
Right.
So that's a little different than there's your mind, the thoughts, but then sometimes you just feel. Understand, like
Yeah. Yeah. The feeling aspect, it does make us really sick, because it comes from the gut, and someone who has perpetual anger tend to get, develop problems in their physical body. And I think this kind of teaching of emptiness helps us to see the essencelessness of getting angry. And our choices then will be different. Instead of getting angry, you just avoid that situation completely. And reacting with anger changes to just accepting and having loving kindness inwardly. Because then the teachings of anger comes like, getting angry is like, drinking poison and wanting somebody else to die. It doesn't happen. Or keeping something burning in your hand and wanting somebody else to be burnt. So that kind of wisdom, coupled with the understanding of emptiness, helps us how meaningless the jealousy and anger is. And it's difficult to change our work life and patterns in life, but eventually we can focus on that and be a different person, even in the work settings. Thinking that, the jealousy and these natural experiences are inevitable, but suffering with them is optional. That we don't have to identify us with that experience. And of course, seeing the harmlessness of the harmfulness of these poisonous stuff that arises in us is very, very important for our freedom of mind and liberation. Yeah, yeah. But it takes years to get there, and it's okay that it takes years to get there. Any question from Zoom people, Loli or anyone?
From today, I understand emptiness two ways.
Mm-hmm.
Way is out. What's the thing?
Mm-hmm.
So that's wrong. This thing wrong to me.
Mm.
Experience, but that's right or wrong. It's that. Oh, it's right or wrong.
Mm. Mm.
and its source.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, or at least I don't understand, is to meditate on one thing, or if your experience is one thing,
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
it's what
Oneness. Yes, that is yeah. So the question is tracing your experience to where it originated and seeing that there's no essence in that starting point. That is one way to look at emptiness. The other one is seeing there is one thing that is present and it is free of other things, therefore it is empty. So that's I think right. Yeah. Okay, let's share merits and so you can do other things tonight. May the suffering ones be suffering free and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect us and protect the Buddha's teachings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you be deeply well. May good things happen to you. May there be every blessing in your lives. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kusala.
Good night.